So we did finish up Pablo Neruda, but one thing I wanted to do, and I had to order it last week, was I wanted to order a couple children's book about Pablo Neruda, and we will include this on our resource file. As you know, a lot of our picture books will be more fiction, and this is more of a biography. So this is written by Monica Brown, is the author of several bilingual books for children inspired by her Peruvian American heritage. She is a recipient of the Americas Award for Children's Literature, and her books have received Pearl Belpre honors. And then it's illustrated by Julie Pashkis. She's illustrated many award-winning books, including The Glass Slipper, Gold Sandal, and A Worldwide Cinderella by Paul Fleischman, and Through George's Eyes by Rachel Rodriguez. For this book, Julie traveled to Chile to see Neruda's home and the people who inspired him. So, let's hear about the story of Pablo that isn't magically realistically fictionalized. So you can see these illustrations are truly gorgeous. Okay. And this was published in 2011. Now, I do not know how to read the stuff that's in the other language. But we know Naruto in the book, Mr. Nefrati, was a collector of words. So there's words in the illustrations, like all over the place. Once there was a little boy named Naphtali. My brain is like changing things up. It was Naphtali who loved wild things wildly and quiet things quietly. From the moment he could talk, Naphtali surrounded himself with words that whirled and swirled, just like the river that ran near his home in Chile. Isn't that beautiful? Naphtali loved to play in the forest, ride horseback, and swim in the river with his friends. Naphtali's father was a train conductor, and sometimes he would take his son with him on the train. Whenever the train made a stop, Naphtali would run off into the forest to search for beetles and birds' eggs and tall ferns that dripped water like tears. And there are more words. And you know, early childhood's all about expanding their exposure to words. Very cool. Naphtali wasn't very good at soccer or at throwing acorns like his friends, but he loved to read and discover magic between the pages of books. A very special teacher named Gabriela Mistral gave him wonderful books from faraway places, and Naphtali decided he wanted to be a writer too. When he was a teenager, Naphtali changed his name to Pablo Neruda and began publishing his poems. He always wrote in green ink, the color of the ferns in the forest and the grass beneath his feet. Pablo moved to the big city of Santiago and met other writers. Together, Pablo and his friends walked the streets wearing great black capes and tall hats. They talked about books and shared their poems with all who would listen. That's pretty cool. I kind of like that. Pablo wrote poems about the things he loved, things made by his artist friends, things found at the marketplace, and things he saw in nature. He wrote about scissors and thimbles and chairs and rings. He wrote about buttons and feathers and shoes and hats. And he wrote about velvet cloth, the color of the sea. I would love to see a read-a-lot of this, and maybe I'll pull one because I want to know like how they would deal with all the words. Because I bet it would be very cool. Pablo loved opposites, so he wrote about fire and rain and spring and fall. In the streets with his friends, Pablo saw joy and sadness, so he wrote about both. Pablo loved the stones of Chile. He wrote about stones rolled by waves onto the beach and stones polished by sand and salt. Sounds like a little science. He wrote about stones tumbling down the mountaintops and stones in the hands of stone cutters. Some cool cross content opportunities. Pablo loved the sea and the feel of the sand beneath his feet. He loved walking along the beach near his home in Chile. He found starfish and seaweed, red crabs and green water. He saw dolphins playing in the surf and rusty anchors washed ashore. Pablo wrote about the children who played in the sea foam and the sand, skipping stones and chasing waves. He wanted each child to share in Chile's wealth and hope. Pablo had many homes. One was in Spain, half a world away. This home was called the House of Flowers because of the red flowers blooming from every corner. The House of Flowers was always filled with dogs, people, young and old. Because above all things and above all words, Pablo Neruda loved people. Pablo loved mothers and fathers, poets and artists, children and neighbors, and his many friends around the world. He opened his arms to them all. So obviously we were really learning about his childhood in Dreamers. One of the flowers here, it says free, and I wonder if these are also similar words. Okay. When Pablo saw the coal miners working dangerous jobs for little money, he was angry. And when he saw they were cold and hungry and sick, he decided to share their story. That sounds like his uncle, Orlando. He joined those who fought for justice and wrote poems to honor all workers who struggled for freedom. Even when his poems made leaders angry, he would not be silenced because he was a poet of the people. When soldiers came to get him, Pablo hid in the homes of friends and then escaped on a horse over the mountains of Chile. Pablo Neruda was brave. He wasn't afraid to share the story of Chile with the world. Chile. Pablo's voice was heard across nations and oceans. From his poems grew flowers of hope and dreams of peace. On this little flower upside down, it says wild, wildly, why? An author's note. Pablo Neruda is considered one of the greatest and most influential poets of the 20th century. He was born Ricardo Eliezer Neftali Reyes Basalto in Parral, Chile in 1904. When Neftali was growing up, his father didn't approve of his poetry, so Neftali began publishing poems behind his father's back under the name Pablo Neruda. During his lifetime, Neruda was a student, a diplomat, a senator, an activist, and a fugitive. But always and above all, Pablo Neruda was a poet, the poet of the people. Among his most famous words are Crepusculario, Diente poems de amor y una canción de desesperada, 20 love poems and a song of despair. And then Spain in the Heart and Elementary Odes. He won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1971. Pablo Neruda died in Chile in 1973, and a few days later, his friend the poet Yevgeny Yevchenko wrote, "He carries his poetry to the people as simply and calmly as a loaf of bread." Today's Pablo's house in Chile on Isla Negra still stands. With feelings of love and hope, women and men from all over the world visit to celebrate the poet of the people. Each time we read one of Pablo's poems, he is with us, inspiring us to love and to make our voices heard. So the author, again, Monica Brown. Okay, Pablo Neruda, poet of the people. It is published by Henry Holt and Company in New York, and we also said it was the year 2011. So this should be one of your books under picture books. That's a bibliography of Pablo Neruda. So our picture books are going to be one of our categories of genres, but we can also identify the type of literature it is. Okay, thank you.